Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all well. I'm really glad to see all of you again today for our Throwback Thursday Camp Culture lesson. Today we are talking about the history of yoga in India and in the United States. So I thought we'd switch it up today and get a little bit active for our Throwback Thursday. So we're going to start today with a little bit of the usual learning about culture and continents and countries that we always do around the world. And then we're going to do some physical activity. So before we get started, please make sure you have enough space to move around because at the end, we're going to need that space. You can see I'm on my office floor right now on a nice comfortable rug. So if you have carpet or somewhere like that, then you could move to. I'll give you a couple minutes to move to somewhere a little bit more comfortable. While you're moving, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about India and the history of something called yoga. And I want to make it very clear that we are not talking about a full history of anything. Just like with all of our Throwback Thursday videos, it's impossible to give a full history of something so important in just the few minutes that we have here together. But we can give some of the basics and help us learn a little bit. And then hopefully, if you're interested in what we're talking about, it's something that you go off and try to learn more about on your own by researching or by asking some experts. So on our globe, I love our Throwback Thursday globe. On our globe, we're going to look for India. India is a country on the continent of Asia. We have Asia right in front of us. Make sure you can see. And India is right here. You can see that India is pretty big. It currently has over 1 billion people living in it. It's got the second most people living in it of any country in the entire world. Can anyone take a moment to think to yourself what might be the first? I'll give you maybe 10 seconds to think in your head silently to yourself about what might be the country with the most people living in it. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. The country with the most people living in it is China, which is also on the continent of Asia. So they're near to each other. China's right here and India's right here. The most popular form of exercise in India is called yoga. So yoga is what we're talking about today. You might have heard of yoga before because it's pretty popular in the United States too. But before we talk about yoga, I want to make sure that we understand that even though people do yoga all over the world, it started in India and it's super important to the overall culture in India and a lot of smaller cultures in India. India is a really big place. Like I said, it's got over 1 billion people living in it. And so there isn't just one culture. There are a lot of different cultures within India. And yoga is really important to people's lives in a lot of places in India. And sometimes when we're talking about food or exercise or another practice, something from another culture, we don't acknowledge where it came from. And so I really want to make sure that even though we understand that people do yoga all over the world, it is originally from India. And that is who we owe all of our appreciation for yoga is to the country of India and to the people who originated it. I'm not an expert in yoga at all. And today I'm not giving you a complete history of anything. People study their whole lives to understanding yoga and yoga practices. So no YouTube video is going to tell you anything. If it's something you're interested in, please keep researching and please ask experts so that they can give you more clarity. And it's not just an exercise. Even though today we're talking about some of the exercise practices and some of the things that you do with your body, it's really important to understand that in many places in India, it's a part of your daily life. It is spiritual, it's mental, and it's physical practices. So it's not just the body, but it's really a part of people's whole lives. It's also important then that we're really respectful when we talk about yoga because yoga is such an important part of people's culture. We don't want to pretend that we know that we more than we do. That's why I made it very clear that I'm not an expert and that I'm only talking about some real basics of history today. When we act like we're experts in things that we don't know about and that aren't ours to talk about, that's really disrespectful to people who are experts. So we want to make sure that we don't pretend that we know more than we do. We also want to make sure that we don't make fun of it. We want to be really respectful that we follow along as best as we can, and that we ask respectful questions whenever we have them. Today, we're learning about some of the physical practices of yoga. This is the word physical. And physical means having to do with your body. Okay, so physical doesn't mean mental, doesn't mean what goes on in your head. It doesn't mean what goes on with your feelings and your emotions. Physical means having to do with your body. The first time yoga was mentioned in recorded history means something that was written down, was in 3000 BCE. That's over 5,000 years ago was the first time that yoga was recorded in history. And it's really hard for historians to track down evidence from things in history that long ago, because it was such a long time ago that a lot of records have been lost. And so you might only get bits and pieces. So a lot of the very earliest history of yoga is hard to understand 100% because you get bits and pieces here, but you don't have anyone who's still alive to tell you the full story. In books and other pieces of writing from around 500 BCE, so that's about 2,500 years ago, still a really long time ago. That's when we see the first signs of the kind of yoga that we sort of understand today. So the stuff that we understand going on today, the first time you see that is about 2,500 years ago. Excuse me. Those books included the physical stuff. So remember, physical means using your body. And it also included the mental practices and the spiritual practices, all of which are meant to make you a healthier person. And yoga was never just one thing. Because what we see the most in the United States is the physical stuff, the things that are a part of exercise. That's how a lot of people think of it. But it has always been a way of thinking, a way of moving, and a way of feeling. Yoga is meant to really connect you with the earth and with your spirit. Practicing yoga, so that means doing yoga, doing the mental things, doing the physical things, doing the spiritual things that are part of yoga, is supposed to bring people closer to liberation. I really, really encourage you to do more research on this if you're interested in it, because it's really interesting. But today we're going to think of liberation as a sort of freedom or peace with yourself and with the world. So that's why people practice yoga, to bring about a sort of freedom and peace with the world. In the 1920s, so that's about 100 years ago, so we've really moved forward in time, people started to think of the physical parts of yoga as a way to exercise. So a bunch of Indian yoga teachers in India started to incorporate things from other practices or sports like gymnastics to create something that was a lot more exercise-based. And that's sort of the type of yoga, the physical yoga, that we see today in the United States and that we practice today. Those teachers took what they created from traditional yoga and combining some other exercise practices, they took it around the world. So remember, we're starting here in India, and now yoga is incredibly popular in a lot of places. You can see India is pretty far from where we are now. It's very, very far because we're all the way over here in North America. So it really, really spread once people decided that they were going to take it and share it in other places. It worked really well. And it spread. And now there are a lot of forms of exercise, yoga, that are popular all around the world outside of places like India. So today, we're going to move a lot more than we normally do. And we're going to learn 3 asanas. This is the word asana. And asanas are postures or poses you take in the practice of physical yoga. I'm going to say the names of them in English because I'm a native English speaker, but of course they have other names in their native Indian languages, but I'm saying the English names because I don't speak those languages. So today we're going to learn the tree pose, the cobra pose, and the chair pose. So I've got to get up and make sure that you can still see me framed in your camera. Oh, great, you can still see me. So the first pose we're going to learn is the tree pose. Can everyone stand up, please? Great, great, great. You're going to take your left leg, you know, your left from your right by doing an L with your hands. The one that looks like a real L, that's your left leg, okay? You're going to take your left leg and put it on the inside of your right leg, just like this, so that it creates a triangle shape. If you're a little bit wobbly, that's okay. Practice gives you more balance. Then you're going to make sure that you keep breathing, and you're going to put your arms over your head like this, and just hold for a few seconds. Make sure you're taking deep breaths. And then you're going to drop your arms, and then you're going to drop your leg. Make sure you take a few deep breaths. And then you're going to do the other side. Some people are more balanced than others with one leg than the other. You can see I'm more wobbly on this leg. Whoop. And you really want to make sure you stretch. And then drop your arms, drop your leg, and take deep breaths. That's the tree pose. If you practice that all the time, you'll get much, much better at it, much more balanced, and it's really good for your balance. I'm talking while I'm doing it, which isn't actually how you're supposed to do it, but that's because I'm teaching people. But normally you wouldn't talk while you were doing it. The next one we're going to do is the cobra pose. So I think I need to move the camera a little bit so you can see better. In the cobra pose, you want to lay down on your stomach, just like this, with your feet together. And then you want to put your hands flat on the floor in front of you and push up so that you're extended like this. And you want to push up so that you're looking towards the sky. You really want to stretch. Make sure you're breathing while you do this. And you can give a big exhale that's breathing out as you come down. And you can always do that a few times. Practice it, and you'll be able to stretch more and more. And then the final one, let me redo this again so you can see, is called the chair pose. And this one can be pretty hard. It takes a lot of balance. So it's okay if you can't do it really, really deep the first time. But you're going to want to put your arms out in front of you. Let me step back so you can see my arms. Arms out in front of you like this. And keep them straight with your back. And then you want to sit like you're sitting in a chair as deep as possible while keeping your balance. You're going to need your feet not pretty far apart, I'm sorry, about shoulder width apart. And you want to sit like you're sitting in a chair. It's important to keep your back straight. So if you're doing this, or if you're doing this, you're not doing it right. You're going to keep your arms straight with your back. And just hold it for a little bit. Make sure you're breathing. And then slowly stand. And those are 3 poses you can start with. If you would like to continue learning some yoga, I really, really recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and it's really good exercise, and it really makes you feel connected to yourself and to the world around you. So that's what we have for today. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and enjoys class. I'll see you later. Bye.